Esse stalk aqui está sendo patrocinado pela Adidas, tá? E a gente está fazendo esse stalk pela primeira vez com a Rachel. E eu fui convidado pela Adidas para ir para o México num summit que a gente teve lá e foi uma viagem incrível. E eu estava lá e a Rachel também estava. E eu estava babando para falar com ela, morrendo de vontade, mas estava mó hype em cima dela, todo mundo queria falar com ela. E eu falei, poxa, deixa pra lá, né? E em um determinado momento a gente foi para um restaurante, onde foi num grupo menor de pessoas. E eu estava do lado de fora, estava na calçada. E ela veio lá de trás e se apresentou. Oi, tudo bem? Eu sou a Rachel. E ela um doce, enfim, nós ficamos a noite inteira conversando, depois nós nos encontramos em LA, nos encontramos em outros lugares, a gente tem se falado bastante, e a gente está muito tempo combinando disso, ela vem para cá. E deu certo, sou muito feliz que ela veio, porque ela é uma pessoa adorável, com uma história incrível, e principalmente ela representa muito uma das maiores forças que a gente tem, que é a história das meninas dentro do mercado dos sneakers, né, no mercado de calçados. A história dela é incrível. E eu tenho um prazer enorme de estar trazendo ela para cá. E quem vai fazer essa conversa com ela, que vai intermediar, vai ser o Jeff, que já veio ano passado. O Jeff já ficou da casa também e dispensa apresentações. Aproveitem, divirtam-se e deem boas-vindas para Rachel e para o Jeff.
Olá, olá.
Olá. E aí, guerrero? All right, welcome.
Awesome. Thanks
What's
for
up,
having
Maze
me.
Fest?
This is so exciting. So great to be here, everybody.
Is
Thank
this
you for coming.
your first time in Sao Paulo?
It is. It's my first time in Brazil.
Okay.
And I'm so happy Sao Paulo is my first stop. So yeah, really excited.
Nice.
Pretty amazing to see the culture just outside.
Mm-hmm.
So very cool.
Yeah. So let's get into this interview because we have a lot of time to cover in a very short amount of time in this talk. And I want to let you guys have audience Q&A as well. So really quickly, where were you born and where did you grow up?
Okay, so yes, the accent is Australian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Melbourne, Australia. So I was born in Melbourne. My parents come from a place called Malta, which is near Italy. So they came over when they were younger, and then I was born in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I grew up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where you started working for Adidas?
No, I actually started working for Adidas in Hong Kong. I was working in Melbourne. My sisters had a streetwear brand, a women's streetwear brand, and I grew up in it. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to the factories in Melbourne. You know, I was like 12 years old, looking at colour patterns, and so I learnt a lot. And then I had an opportunity to move to Hong Kong with an agency, and when I was there, as luck would have it, applied for a job at Adidas, actually looking through a newspaper. It was a while ago. And I, funnily enough, didn't hear from Adidas, and I was at a dinner, and the guy sitting next to me worked at Adidas in Hong Kong, and I was like, oh wow, I just applied for a job. And he said to me, really, I didn't see your resume. So he gave me his details, I sent him my resume, and then a few days later they got in contact, and after a few different interviews, I got the job.
Nice.
So I was a regional manager, merchandiser within Asia, and that was pretty amazing, getting to go to Tokyo and Seoul, and places that I'd never been, which was awesome.
Yeah. Where did you progress from that role?
So when I started in Hong Kong, that was when actually I began working with the Adidas skateboarding team, and so that I think really started my love for authenticity. And I keep on going back to that, like being authentic is so important when you're doing collaborations, when you're doing product, and that taught me a lot. That was probably my first 6 weeks at Adidas. The skateboarding team came to Hong Kong, and I remember them skating in the streets of Hong Kong, and Hong Kong people were just like, what is this? Like, Hong Kong's crazy with traffic.
Right.
And these, Mark Gonzalez actually, just like going, nearly getting hit by cars, so it was pretty nuts. But it really set me up for this idea of collaboration. And then the Adidas head office reached out and offered me a job to move over to Herzogenaurach in Germany. So after 3 years in Hong Kong, I moved to Germany and began working on collaborations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the first project that you got to sink your teeth into?
The first project was lovely Jeremy Scott, and that was a time when I would say there was a love for sneakers, but there was this kind of, it was very iconic. Only like our old reissues were, so if you know Consortium, that was really what everyone was about. And so we started working with Jeremy, and he's pretty out there. So he's got some pretty big ideas. And I remember when he showed us this picture of a teddy bear that he'd cut up and put it on a shoe, and he's like, "What do you think?" And we were just like, I don't know. And we're like, well, if anyone can do it, Jeremy can do it. And he'd had the success of the wings, and we did this, and it was just insane. Like, kids were lining up outside stores, and this was really before this idea of like hype and the resale market. StockX wasn't around, and so it was just a very organic, a really organic period of time watching the consumer and everyone get really interested in sneakers. So that was really, really special, actually. Yeah.
Why do you think, looking back, Adidas sort of said, you are the one that can work with our collaborative partners?
Well, that's a good question. I think if I look back, I think it's because I always try to see what the creative wants to do, because it's really important that if you're doing a collaboration, that you allow the designer or the musician or whoever you're working with to be able to put their ideas on the table. And in my role, I know how to make it happen and bring their ideas with our ideas and kind of bring it to life. So that's, I think, there's a lot of patience with that, because you can't always say yes, which I'm sure you can imagine is not so easy when designers and musicians have ideas.
And everyone says yes to them all the time.
Yes, everyone says yes to them. And when you you can make a music track in one night and put it out the next day. If you do product, I mean, it takes time to, make the material. It takes time to color the material. It takes time to get the fit of the sneaker correct. So there's so much that goes into the back of it. Patience is extremely important. Yeah.
Would you say you're more like business-minded or creative-minded?
I actually think I'm right in the middle. And that's, I think, why it's worked with a lot of the partners I've worked with, because you want, obviously, the business, you want the product to work, but you also have to realize that there are ideas that you've never seen before. And that's sometimes really hard to understand. And you're like, okay, how do you make, this CEO or CMO believe that a teddy bear on an iconic Adidas sneaker is a good idea? Like, they're a little bit like, oh, don't mess with what we have, but it's also about progress, and you have to progress. So that's really important.
Right, because it's easy to say, this is impossible, it can't be done, and just shut it down.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've been in many situations like that, and that's more actually on my side internally, where certain teams are set up in a certain way. You have a 12-month calendar. Maybe you have a 6-month calendar if you're lucky, and that's creation, like just to make product. So when you go to someone and you're like, we need to turn around 50 samples in different colors in 3 months, they're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And you have to really bring them on the journey to make them understand the possibility of it. Yeah.
I think from the Eric Costin talk that I did, one of the questions that always arises when I do a talk in like Sao Paulo or something, it's like, you're from Melbourne, Australia, and Australia is often seen as like the bottom of the earth, like bottom corner.
That's right.
You ended up in Hong Kong and then Germany and then, like working with Jeremy Scott. Were you thinking like, how did a girl from,
Melbourne.
down under, do this? So how did you parlay yourself into that position?
I watched
this
the
is
Eric...
pre-Instagram.
You
weren't like a social media influencer and then got the job.
No. I think it's really about persistence. And there was a question, I saw Eric's interview, which was great earlier, and someone asked about internships. And that is so important when you're coming up in the industry. And even, you know, I have a lot of friends who have come into the industry later in their life, and a lot of them have either worked in like sneaker stores, have been a part of, you know, some amazing friends of mine, Sneakers and Stuff, SNS, is, you know, a store that started in Stockholm, and a lot of their team have actually gone on to do other things as well. And it's teams that were working, you know, packing boxes, and one of them started doing the Instagram posts, or so it's this idea of you really do have to start somewhere and be excited by that. And I think for myself, I was always, no matter what, I ended up always meeting the cleaning staff either in the morning or at night, because you're the one that's kind of having to do all of that legwork, you know, for your bosses, for whoever needs it. When you work with collaboration partners, being in Herzegovina is a different time zone to Los Angeles. So it meant that all my calls generally started at 7 p.m. at night, and that was a huge commitment. But I knew that I loved it, and, you know, I think life turns into your personal life, like your work life turns into your personal life, and that's what I love about this industry.
So let's look at some of the other collabs that you've sort of had your hands in. This one, a lot of people probably know about here. So you helped to orchestrate Palace and Adidas to happen?
This was a really special one for me because I obviously started working with Adidas skateboarding back in Hong Kong. So when I moved to Germany, they asked me to continue working on that, and Adidas skateboarding was really small back then. You know, we had Dennis Busenitz, and it was and Mark Gonzalez. So it was really starting to build. The Busenitz was starting to grow as an iconic sneaker, and I just felt this energy that I was on a trip in New York, and I had heard about Palace coming together. And the team that actually created Palace, I knew the guys in London. Lev was our Adidas skateboarding team manager for our skateboarding team. And Gareth, who runs Palace, had a store called Slam City Skate. And so it just felt really authentic. I keep on going back to that word. It was like Lev would be in full, you know, a full Adidas tracksuit. You know, there was a real love for the brand, and we could really see their creativity and what they were doing, and it was something really special to jump on, even before the big wave came on board, which was great.
Success, right?
Absolutely, and I think being a big brand like Adidas, there is always that thing of like, oh, the big machine and what's going to happen, and the beauty inside the brand is that we have these small teams that really work closely with the partners, and we go to the archive, we do different things to really make sure there's a real connection between the product that then comes out in store.
So I think this is a lot of people probably here wonder this question. You just mentioned you knew Lev and Gareth for a while. You had this position at Adidas where you can sort of trigger a project to happen.
Sure.
How does it finally, like, it's almost like y'all are dating, and it's like, okay, when do we get into bed and like get married here? Like, how does that?
That's funny.
Right? There had to be one dinner where it was like, okay, we're doing this. Right? Like, or one meeting, right? Do you remember that moment where you're like, okay, you walked away from that meeting and you're like, this is really going to happen now?
Goodness. That's a tough one. I think I'd spoken to Lev, and it was almost just like this idea, and Yasha, who's heads up our team for Adidas skateboarding, we just were talking, and I think it was just really, it's like almost like the moment just kind of came together. It weirdly wasn't like a dinner or anything. I think we all just weirdly saw it and were like, of course we're going to do this. And
so very gradual and organic.
I think that's the best way to put it.
Cool. All right, and then we have here going into the female market, right?
So this was interesting. Mary Katranzu is a designer from London, and she has an amazing technique of graphic prints. And she had just started really doing some amazing product. And for where we wanted to go, it was a perfect time to potentially look to work with her. So that was one that I really felt that as a woman in the industry, having a woman as the head designer, then creating product for women was something that we don't see so much in the industry, and
Yeah.
it's still, we don't still see not enough of it, but this for me was really important. And what I loved was that not only was it about this idea of connecting with women, it actually, we saw this spike of retailers going, hold on a minute, we want this product, because there are women that want to buy sneakers, that want product connected to Adidas with this amazing designer. So it was a really nice marrying of these different worlds of, you know, Mary Katranzu's high fashion, some of her dresses sell for $60,000 because of the materials she uses, but then to be able to use her amazing design techniques for an Adidas track top is pretty epic to be able to do that.
Yeah. What are you seeing now, in your opinion, from your perspective, like female representation in the culture? Like, I even just look out at this room and I'm seeing like good 40-50% female representation at Maze Fest too.
Yeah.
How do you see it progressing that way?
I think it's awesome to see how many women are in this room, and I think, you know, the fact that I'm very, you know, thankful that I got the opportunity to talk today, but I hope it shows everyone that there's a lot of women in this industry who want content that's also catered to women, because I also believe that men want to see that as well. You know, it's something for me that it's getting better, but it's still not where it needs to be. So I think, you know, as a woman in the industry, I've got a job to do with the position that I have, but I think we all do. I think there's this great, I heard this great interview with a comedian in America, and she was not invited to a comedy room like to do the sketches, and she then went on to be the head of SNL, Saturday Night Live, Tina Fey.
Okay.
And basically they said to her, so what happened when you went and then you started to employ more women? And she said, well, it was really funny. When I started and I said some jokes, the guys in the room didn't really get it. And she was like, and then we hired some more women. And then the women were laughing at my jokes. And she's like, and when you think about the audience, it's 50% women and 50% men watching Saturday Night Live. So if we're not doing jokes that women like, we're missing half of the audience. And that's, I think, when I heard that, I was like, well, that's pretty important, because you've got to think about that as well. In a design room, in retail stores, if you don't have that representation, how can you cater for those consumers?
For everyone, yeah.
Absolutely. And that goes to, there's a lot of, you know, when we talk about diversity, it's, you know, different nationalities that need to be in the room, different races that need to be in the room. You know, I was fortunate in my last role at Adidas to hire people, and that was really important. It was like, who are you going to hire when you have an opportunity to make a difference? Because it's in your hands as well, I think.
Right.
You know, as much as I'm here saying, you know, I need more women in the sportswear industry, I need to also fight for that as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that takes us to this gentleman, and I'm talking about the one in the polka dot shirt, Mr. Pharrell Williams.
Yeah.
So you're working at Adidas, you're sort of working on collaborations,
Yep.
and then how do they tell you that Mr. Williams is coming to the building? Or were you the one that brought him to the building?
No, we had, rest in peace, he was our chief marketing officer, Herman Deininger. If you don't know about him, you should Google him, because he brought on Yohji Yamamoto, Pharrell, Kanye West. He was truly an inspiring person, and his last add-ons, he really believed actually in the culture, which was amazing. To have someone in that position allow us to do this, and he brought in Pharrell and Kanye, and so I got a phone
Like, he
call.
literally brought in, like, he met with Pharrell.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. He met with Pharrell and, you know, brought him on board, which was pretty amazing. And Pharrell actually brought on Parlay as well, if you know the sustainability program at Adidas. So, yeah, I got a phone call January 6th, and they were like, yeah, so tomorrow Pharrell's coming. And I was like, oh, thanks for the preparation, you know, yeah. And so we had a really fantastic opportunity to show him our archives and really see with Pharrell what he would be interested in, what childhood memories he had being in the archive, and that was something really special. And the superstar actually there was one that when you work, obviously there's, within the sneaker world, you're always looking at what's going to be the next big story. And there's a lot of life cycles within sneakers. So what's going to come back? You know, we had an amazing moment with the Stan Smith, and then we were planning for the superstar to be our next big moment. And it was really interesting. We had this time with Pharrell. He loved the fact that the shoe he's holding is the iconic, originally signed by the Run DMC crew. And so it was pretty epic. And then we sat with him and we're like, so would you want to do anything on the superstar? And he was like, no, I'm not really feeling it. And we're like, oh, really? Great, there goes that. But we really wanted the superstar to be a part of his story because we really believed it. And so it didn't work. That didn't work. We don't always get a yes either. And then we had this moment where everyone was like, okay, we really want Pharrell to do this. So I'm like, oh goodness, how am I going to make this happen? So a few of us flew to London. He was there for some event, and we only had 30 minutes with him over lunch at this posh hotel in London. They closed the kitchen down, or they closed the restaurant down. And anyway, we sit with him, and he was like, we're like, look, Pharrell, we really want to do the superstar with you. You know, can we maybe give it another shot? And he was like, all right. He's like, what is it that you want to achieve? And we're like, well, you know, we want to bring the superstar back. And he's like, no, like how much volume, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, he wants to talk about the business. I'm like, this is pretty cool. So anyway, we talk about it. And then he's like, okay, I want to do 50 colors. And I'm like, what? 50 colors? And yeah.
He's like, you want a lot? I'm going to give you a lot.
Exactly. I'm like, you've realized you've made my job 50 times harder.
You're like, no, just one shoe.
No, yeah. And so I'm thinking like 4 colors maybe, you know, no. So then I have to go back. You know, we're in Germany, so they've got their, you know, ideas as well of what we're coming back with. And I'm like, Arthur, who was the MD at the time, and I'm like, you know, he's got this idea about 50. And they were just like, 50? And they're like, how are we going to put 50 colors in the back of a store? How are we going to do, you know, e-com? How many wholesale partners are going to stock X amount of colors? Like, when you think it in a big scale, you're just like, oh, okay. And I was like, I believe in it. We believe in it. Just give me the yes and we'll make it happen.
Right.
And he was like, all right, I trust you guys. Good luck. So thankfully he gave us the blessing, which meant that all the other departments had to kind of also go, you know.
Fine.
Yeah. Capital F, and then it was a case of, all right, so a lot of work was done, and this was that part about the collaboration, not just with your partner, but your collaboration with the factories, the sampling rooms, the, you know, retail partners. So there's this huge web that you have to really look after. And we literally had, like, I think it was 2 months to turn around, because you have to, when you're working with a partner, you want to, and I believe in this, get everything signed off together. So then when the product comes out, you really are both like, we love it, you know?
So you had to bring 50 pairs to Pharrell.
Yeah,
right?
50 pairs to Pharrell anywhere in the world within the 2 months. So he was traveling in Dusseldorf at a concert, and so we had to go backstage, and we're literally, you know, hand carrying these 50 superstar colors, and we start unpacking them, and Pharrell was just like blown away that we're actually able to make this happen.
And this photo's actually at the concert backstage. Like, this is his dressing room.
This is his dressing room in Dusseldorf, which is in a small town in Germany. And I'd never been backstage either, so I didn't know what to expect. And it's like, we're like little rooms. So I'm like, how are we going to do this? But his team, because the way that we worked it with him was color Pantones, and really making sure that it was like a rainbow, because the one thing Pharrell wanted out of this pack was that everyone had an opportunity to buy a different color, about this idea of originality. And so they did it. He sat in it. This was not like, we didn't ask him to do anything. He just sat in it and like did this. And we're all like, wow, this is such an awesome moment. And so we all took photos, and Pharrell actually asked us to post it, not us. He was like, I want to post it, I want to post it. We posted this before the product had even been sold into the accounts. You don't normally do that.
Yeah, that's like a leak.
Yeah, that's like a leak. So we pre-leaked before leaking was like the thing to do. And it was pretty insane. Like, it's really funny because I screenshotted those very early on. I'm just thinking about, 3:54 a.m. in the morning. I must have been flying.
Yeah.
But it ended up actually becoming the most watched, most liked campaign for the full of Adidas that year, which we were pretty, blown away by.
Yeah.
But it continued to prove this idea of if it's really real and authentic, and you can come with some, pretty out there ideas, you've got to give it a shot. And it's not always about being this is an amazing moment. And this does not happen every day.
Yeah.
But the fact that we kind of allowed the process to just be, I really believe that's what took it to the next level. So it was pretty exciting to be a part of it.
And so going back in time a little bit, when you got that call that Pharrell is coming in, only a couple of weeks before, like literally within the same month, right?
Yeah.
Before that, you had to meet with another person.
Yeah. So
This dude.
yeah. So Kanye came in, like it was December 17th, and so that was like the 2 weeks before Pharrell, and that was a similar situation where they were like, Kanye's coming in, can you be there? And I was like, that's the day my flight leaves for Australia. It's Christmas. And they were like, I was like, okay, I'll change my flights. And so, of course, I wanted to. I mean, amazing opportunity to work on a project like this. So that was, it was a pretty, one of those moments at the end of January, I just like had to pinch myself and be like, okay, these two amazing icons have been in the office in Herzogenaurach, middle of Germany, and I had the opportunity to work with them, which was pretty exciting. So yeah.
And these are some just behind the scenes stuff of development.
Yeah, so that was season 1 when we were in New York, getting ready for the show. So that was pretty epic moment.
And this is.
Yeah, this was.
There's you.
That's me, yes, and we
looking
were
stressed out.
Yeah, let's just say.
There's Kanye looking Kanye.
It doesn't happen overnight. So, there's a lot of work that goes into this, and we had an amazing team in Germany. Kanye has an amazing team as well, and so everyone really worked together to bring to life, some pretty iconic moments.
Yeah. And then that ended up, so you transitioned from collaborations at Originals to just full-on Yeezy, right?
Yeah, so I was moved to Portland, Oregon, which is our US office, and we set up a new BU, which is like a new business team that would manage product and the sales side of the business. So I had the opportunity to build that team with some great fellow colleagues at Adidas, and that was a really amazing time to watch, I would say, the sneaker culture, like you remember the Jeremy Scott moment to where we are now, and these raffles that are happening. It's such an inspiring moment to see how many people today, and I think also like 12, 13-year-olds. That's something that I find really inspiring.
Yeah. Girls
and boys. When I think about the sizing of Yeezy, we really focus on women's sizing as well. It's really important that we have a decent split of the product because it's everyone wants to wear some great sneakers.
So when you say you were developing the business unit, it means like you were creating like a mini company within Adidas.
Yeah.
Like it had its own
structure kind of thing. Yeah.
Its own sales, its own marketing, its own everything.
Yeah. But we tap into the Adidas matrix, I would say, and that's the power. Like that's the amazing power of being able to work with a brand like that, like Adidas.
That's the infrastructure he requested.
That's right. You heard Eric talking about it before. Infrastructure is really important. Working with factories is difficult. If you don't have the support in the front side. Yeah, it can be pretty insane. So yeah.
And then of course the accolades that, you know, everyone knows the success and the influence that the whole Yeezy collection has, and it won. This was sneaker of the year in what year?
I think it was 2015, actually, the end of 2015. So it was pretty amazing, and I think to have someone like Kanye, who is truly a genius in his ideas and what he brings to the table, to be able to come in and work with our Boost material, which was really new back then, and that was the beginning of our, like, the performance, that performance icon Boost, and also the prime knit material. So I think when you look at the product, it's a really fresh take on other product within Adidas. Nice to see some 700s at the front as well. So.
And he brought you up on stage along with Wex, and
Wex and I were up.
That was nice. Stage. I mean, it was a nice moment that, like, he credited the team.
Yeah, no, it was really special actually. I think knowing how much work went into all the product, it's a pretty special feeling when you get an acknowledgement like that.
Right.
So that was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now I think there's some big news that you want to announce, right?
Yeah, so I mean, some people who follow my Instagram maybe, but I haven't really talked about it. But a few months ago, Pharrell Williams approached me to join his team. So I've started working officially with Pharrell Williams, which is my new day job. So,
wow.
So that's pretty exciting. Yeah.
So that's amazing. I mean, it's also like the opportunity is incredible, but you know, you were at Adidas for how long at that point?
It was 11 years.
Okay, so over a decade at Adidas.
Yeah.
Was the decision to then go to the clients, really, like, Pharrell was the client of you?
Yeah.
And then so he asked you to come over.
Yeah.
Was that like a tough decision to make?
Oh yeah, like, I mean, I think Adidas is still like my family, you know. So lucky to be here with the Adidas Brazil. You know, it's I think it's funny. Someone said to me the other day, "Oh, you're going to start wearing other brands?" And I'm like, I don't know when I can start. I still feel like, you know, but it's almost like a football team, I think, once you pick your side. But to say that, you know, Adidas was so supportive of the decision, and it was one that Pharrell asked me to join as a general manager within his structure and what he's building. So for him to be directly my boss, it's an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. It was just a very special, that kind of creative energy and opportunity that, and what Pharrell does from a world perspective, and you know, even the campaign that we did here, it was about going to Native American culture and doing the ad campaign with the community. So the community got paid like normal models. It was really about just, you know, really showing that culture in a moment when we're talking about sneakers as well, you know. So it's really about how do we not just think about the consumerism side, which of course that's a fact, but we've got an opportunity to speak louder, and I think that that's something that I'm really looking forward to be a part of. So
great. All right, well, that's all the time we have. Thank you for your time, Rachel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. It was really, really cool. Really cool.